Chapter 6, Lesson 7, Equivalent Expressions. You will be able to use properties to simplify expressions. To simplify an algebraic expression, use properties to write an equivalent expression that has no like terms and no parentheses. Simplify each expression. Now, we have 4 times 6x. It's all multiplication. And what we can do is we can move those parentheses over to be 4 times 6 in parentheses. And then the times x on the outside. Because we can then multiply 4 times 6, which is 24. And we don't know what x is, so we still just multiply by x. And that's the best we can do with a. So we use the associative property of multiplication. Letter B, I'm going to do a couple things. And actually, you know what? I'm going to note what properties we use. Associative property of multiplication. That was this step right here. Now for this, I want my... Now, I can't just use the associative property because it would just group x and 11 and it still would get me nowhere. So instead, I'm going to use the commutative property first and rearrange it so it's x times 3 times 11. So here we use the commutative property of multiplication. Now I can use the associative property and instead group the 3 and 11 together. And 3 times 11 is 33. Bring down the times x. And the proper way to write these is to put your number first before your variable, so I'm just going to rewrite it that way. 33x. Now, before I had mentioned like terms. There are terms that are alike. What looks the same? Well, what looks the same depends on the variables. So here I have 1x, 1x, and 1x. 1x plus 1x plus 1x is 3x. Think of x like apples, for example. I have 1 apple plus 1 apple plus 1 apple, which means I have 3 apples. And those are all like terms because they all have the same variables. Let's take a look at letter D. Now, I have a 7x, an 8, and a 1x. Okay, we don't always write the 1 in front of a variable when it's all by itself, but there's 1 there, so it deserves a 1. Well, 7x and 1x look the same. So let me box those here. But 8 does not look the same. So let's use the commutative property here and rewrite and put the 7x plus the 1x and then the plus 8. So here we use the commutative property. Oops. Of multiplication. Or actually, it's not of multiplication, it's of addition, because we have addition now. Okay. And now let's actually take care of those. So again, think of the variable like apples or bananas or bicycles. You have 7 bicycles plus 1 bicycle, which is 8 bicycles. And then bring down that plus 8. Remember, these are not like terms. The numbers don't matter if they're the same. It doesn't matter if they're the same or not. It's the variables. Since this has a variable x and this term does not, they are not like terms, so that's our answer. 3 friends will pay X dollars each for admission to the museum, plus $1 each to view the mummy exhibit. A 4th friend will pay admission, but will not view the mummy exhibit. Write and simplify an expression to represent the total cost. Okay, so 3 friends will pay X dollars, so 3 times X, and for admission to the exam, and $1 each to view the mummy exhibit, so 3 people times $1 for the mummy exhibit, and we're going to add those together, and the 4th friend will only pay admission, but he doesn't want to see the mummy exhibit. So he's only paying the X dollars for admission. And remember, when there are variables by itself, we want to put a 1 in front of it as its coefficient. Well, first thing I want to do is multiply those two together. So we have 3x plus 3 plus 1x. Well, I've got the 3x that looks the same as the 1x. So I'm going to use the commutative property of addition and rearrange them. So I'm going to put those x terms together. So 3x plus 1x plus 3. 3x plus 1x is 4x, bringing down the plus 3. I don't know what x is. 3 doesn't have an x attached to it, so therefore that's the cost of the admission. I don't know what, or cost of the museum. Okay. Use the information from the question above to write and simplify an expression for the total cost of 6 friends to go to the museum if only 4 friends view the mummy exhibit. Okay, so we have 6 friends going to the museum, which would be 6 times the admission, and only 4 to view the mummy exhibit. And I can't simplify that any further, so that's our expression. Oh, actually, it was, if I remember, let me go back a bit. It was $1 admission, so I really should have put 4 times the $1 admission to the mummy exhibit. And I can simplify, this would be 4. Small oversight, I apologize. So it would still be 6x plus 4. I just missed the step up here. Simplify expressions with 2 variables. Properties can be used to simplify or to factor expressions with 2 variables. Compare the effects of operations on numbers to the effects of operations on variables. Okay. So with numbers, we could say there are 2 3's, so 2 times 3, and then tack on the 4. So we can write it in a shortened way. Similarly, there are 2 x's, so we can say 2 x's plus tack on the y at the end. Okay, so it works very similarly, only we don't know what x is or y is, and they are different amounts. So let's take a look at this first expression here. We have 14y plus x in parentheses, and then plus 22y. Well, the y's look similar, and I want them near each other. So the first thing I'm going to use that commutative property of addition again, and switch around what's inside the parentheses. So it's x plus 14y, and then plus 22y. So again, that was the commutative property. Then I'm going to use the associative property and change the parentheses to be around 14y plus 22y. And I can add those together because they are like terms. So 14 yo-yos, for example, 14 yo-yos plus 22 yo-yos is 36 yo-yos, or 36y. X and y are totally different amounts, so I don't know. Well, they could be the same amount, but I don't know that. I don't know what amounts they are, so I cannot combine them or add them. So it would just stay as x plus 36y. And let's just take a moment and jot down those properties here. This one was the associative property of addition. And this one was the commutative property of addition. Okay. Letter B. Simplify. Well, I have 3x plus 9y plus 2x. The 3x and the 2x look alike because they have the same variables. They are like terms. So I want to rearrange it so they are next to each other. So 3x plus 2x plus 9. And that is the commutative property of addition. Oh, we'll put it underneath. And then I want to combine those like terms, 3x and 2x. 3x plus 2x is 5x. Bring down the plus 9. I don't know what x is, so I cannot combine those. So it is 5x plus 9. Simplify 4 times the quantity 2x plus y using the distributive property. So here again, we can actually use the distributive property on two variables. I'm just going to rewrite my question here, or my expression. I'm going to distribute 4 times 2x plus 4 times y. I can do 4 times 2. It's all multiplication. 4 times 2 is 8. So I have 8x plus, and 4 times y is 4y. I don't know what x or y is, so that's the answer. Letter D, let's distribute again. And again, I'm going to rewrite it so I have more space here. 7 times 3x plus 7 times y. This would be 21x plus 7y. Can't go any further because x and y are two different variables. And we can also factor as well with two different variables. So let's do our factor trees. We have 27x, which is 9 times 3, and bring down that x. Minus 3 times 3, bring down the 3, bring down the x. 18y, we have 9 and 2 and y. And 9 is 3 times 3. Bring down the 2, bring down the y. It looks like we have a 3 and another 3 in common, which is it. So our GCF is 9. And 9 goes on the outside of the parentheses. We have a 3 times x remaining on the left, plus a 2 times y remaining on the right. So our final answer here is 9 times the quantity 3x plus 2y. It looks complicated, but if you follow along through the steps, piece of cake. Letter F, factor. Let's factor another one. And we'll do our factor trees. 12x. We've got 3 and 4, and of course x. 4 breaks down to 2 and 2. Bring down the 3, bring down the x. And 8y. 8 can be broken down into 4 and 2, and of course the y. 4 is 2 times 2. Bring down the 2, bring down the y. Looks like we have a couple 2's in common. So our GCF is 4. And a 3 and an x are remaining on the left-hand side. And a 2 and a y are remaining on the right-hand side. So we have 4 times the quantity of 3x plus 2y.